Greetings and happy Thursday. Welcome to the Society's Consortium first Hot Topic webinar of 2022, engaging students and early career members in society leadership and culture change. My name is Amy Koulis, and I am the Ethics and Idea Director with the American Society for Microbiology. A recording of the entire call is being made and will be posted on the Consortium website in the Members section. Your accessing the link to participate in today's webinar constitutes consent to the recording, so please drop off now or don't identify yourself or your society in any of the comments or questions in the Q&A function if you don't want to be recorded. The Leadership Council is to work, the purpose of the Leadership Council is to work collaboratively with the Education Council and provide input to the Executive Committee to ensure that the consortium deliverables provide high quality value to society members. There are currently 10 societies on the leadership that represent a diversity of sizes and disciplines, including one with a focus on LGBTQ+ members in the field. Today, we will be practicing the virtual courtesy and following the norms. Please use the question and answer function to write a comment or question for our presenters and panelists. Please refrain from off-topic chats in the Q&A. Please don't comment on anyone's appearance or whether they are on or off camera, even in jest or as a compliment. Kindly share the air and respect all participants. Be succinct if you speak in order to make room for many more voices. Critique ideas and not people, and please expect the moderators to interject if needed to make sure that that is happening. The ground rules for today and the plan for the webinar are as follows. We will have our panel discuss their society's respective efforts in order to engage students and early career members in the society leadership and culture change initiatives. Following our panelists, we will have time at the end for a question and answer session. We ask you to include your name and society when you submit a question or a comment unless you do not want to be recorded, because we encourage each of you to connect with other society peers to further discuss practices that resonate with your society as well as your colleagues. So please feel free to add to the Q&A or comments as they come to mind during today's webinar. They will be noted for the end at the Q&A section. With this, it is my pleasure to introduce Marcia Lesky, who is the Senior Director of Diversity, Inclusion, and Volunteer Cultivation at Optica, and she is also a member of the Leadership Council.
Hi, everyone. I think I turned my mic on correctly, so I think we're good to go. If you want to go to slide 1. I want to start with a little bit of background. You know, at Optica, we've got these guiding principles that we have identified for the organization, one of which is specifically focused around inclusivity. And we, you know, the line we use is we strive to provide an atmosphere in which all people feel valued and respected and have access to the same opportunities. And so really all of our work around DEI related efforts and areas where we focus in on our students and early career folks are guided by that principle. Today, what I want to do is kind of provide a big picture overview of some of our student and early career programming, and then share a little bit specifically about how we've built tracks to leadership for these groups and how we've mobilized and empowered them to be engaged with our DEI related activities. So you can go on to slide 2. So just to provide a little bit of foundation, between Optica and the Optica Foundation, we have a lot of programs and efforts and funding invested in our students in early careers. We have special membership rates. We have reduced meeting registration rates. We provide career resources. We have almost 400 student chapters around the world that have access to funding and programs and leadership opportunities. And we provide a number of scholarships and prizes and grants and fellowships. This picture is actually of one of our ambassadors doing a traveling lecture program for a student chapter. You can head on to slide 3, the next slide. Specifically, so we've got all of these different programs, but when you're talking specifically about leadership related programs, we've got a few that I just want to highlight where we really work to identify and train and engage these groups into leadership roles across the society. One is a program called Student Leadership, and members have to apply to attend. They typically come out of our student chapter programs, but not necessarily. With this program, we bring 100 students to our annual meeting every year, and they go through this leadership training program as well as get to participate and engage with the annual meeting. We have a program then for early career called Ambassadors, and those also is a program our members have to apply for. There's a big screening that happens by other early career members and by previous classes of ambassadors, and we select 10 people a year. And these individuals go through different types of trainings, attend our meetings, travel all throughout the course of their the year that they're ambassadors, and then they're ambassadors for life, really. We also have these programs called career accelerators, and they are trainings that we've built up that are a week-long kind of intensive program for skills building sort of outside the world of academia. So it's communication skills, everything from kind of communication to budgeting, a whole array of different types of programs. And then this weekend, we're actually launching a new one called Level Up Leadership, which is geared toward early career professionals. And it's really training for how to be a leader in a society like ours, leadership skills and building for, you know, the workplace. And it's very exciting, and we're literally going to see how it works this weekend when we have the first program. I think this first class is around 25 or 30 people, but hopefully we're going to do this annually and maybe even more than once a year. So be able to have a number of folks go through programs and trainings like this. And all of these efforts really are led toward trying to identify people that can serve in leadership positions. And folks from all of these programs have ended up on our meeting committees, journals, within our technical groups, across our governance. And we've had several ambassadors actually serve on the board of directors already. So it's a lot of different programs that are kind of geared toward figuring out how to identify, cultivate, and get these folks into our leadership structure. Before I jump on to sort of specifically how we then engage them in DEI efforts, does anyone have any questions?
Marsha?
Yeah.
Would you be willing to share a little bit about what this weekend's going to look like, the type of things that you're doing this weekend?
Sure.
It must be on your mind.
We've hired a woman named Hannah Roberts with Hannah Roberts Coaching, and she's going to go through a number of different trainings on beyond the imposter syndrome, career launch pads, building your personal brand. There's going to be some one-on-one coaching opportunities, leadership building, how to work with and through others, conflict resolution, We've got some of our members, our president, our current president is going to be there, and 2 other board members are going to be there to talk about specifically career planning, goal setting, and getting involved with a society and different leadership opportunities with this society. I just happen to have that there, sorry. Any other quick questions? And I know we've got time later too, so if questions are coming in later, I'm happy to answer them. You can go on to the next slide. What I wanted to really focus my time on is specifically how we engage these students in early career in our DEI efforts in particular. So starting with just a little bit of a background on how we do this, we have our, in addition to Level Up Leadership, our Leadership Week is next week, starting Sunday night, and we have about 150 people that make up our governance structure, and that's from different boards and councils for meetings and journals and membership and strategic planning, and all the way up to our board of directors. A lot of them will be here next week for the annual leadership conference. What we don't have is a specific diversity council. What we kind of made the conscious decision not to have a standing DEI committee, but rather have DEI goals and requirements kind of strewn throughout each of our existing governance structures. I know that's the way we've chosen to go, and it so far is working for us. What we do have in place of a standing committee we work through rapid action committees, or RACs. And these are board-driven efforts to really examine very specific things and come up with recommendations. And we do these around a lot of topics. I'm gonna focus in on the DEI ones that we've done recently. There's been 3 recently that have really been charged with examining existing policies and programs and making recommendations focused around diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. So if you want to go to the next slide. The 3 RACs that I'm going to kind of talk about, and what I'm going to do is share a little bit of work of these 3 RACs, and then really focus in and get specific on the implications for students and early career people. And obviously it's the work of these affects a lot of our members, not just that. But one thing, as we talk through these, I just want to note from the very beginning, each of these rapid action committees, we identified leaders in our community, but each of them had at least 2 or more students or early career members as a member of this committee. So as we're having these discussions, like before any policies even get created, we're including that community in the discussions that are happening, which I think is very important. It provides a perspective that if they weren't there, some of the programs and policies I don't think would be as effective as they are, or looking as forward into the future as they do. So if you go to the next slide, I'm going to talk about each of these RACs separately and focus in on the specific events and activities and programs as a result of them. The first was the Women in Optics Rapid Action Committee. Their goal was to assess the current gender distribution throughout the society and make recommendations. The result was they identified 9 target areas to focus in on in regards to trying to increase participation of women across these within these specific areas, and it ran the whole breadth of the organization. Specific programs that were targeting students in early career included things like grants and scholarships to attend our meetings, so students would have access to and be able to attend these meetings and conferences that we run. We focused on our governance was a focus area, and increasing participation of women across all of our different governing bodies meant tapping into a lot of the early career women and bringing them along and getting them engaged across the entire society. And each governance committee had targets and goals to achieve that. And then the last one was simply increasing the number of women in the optics community. And so one huge thing that came out of that is this scholarship that you see. It has literally just closed a week ago, and the goal of this scholarship program is, it was launched by the Optica Foundation, and the goal is to provide visibility, community, and resources for 20 undergraduate or master's level students annually. So we're going to be including, this includes funding, it includes a scholarship, professional development resources, mentorship opportunities, and connecting this community so that by 2030, the idea is we're going to have 200 new women in the optics community that will be bringing in their perspective, their experience, and into the society and into the field. So it is both about supporting those that are already here, but also how do we increase the numbers? So that was an outcome of this, that Rapid Action Committee. Do you want to go to the next one? Our code of conduct rack. You see this slide, and you probably see, I've got the signs actually in my office here. They're all over. Our code of conduct, our rack that looked at this created a whole new code of conduct in anti-harassment policy for the society. Excuse me. It resulted in updating the language, creating a survey where we actually partnered with our sister society SPIE and did a whole survey of how people's experiences at our meetings, and tried to address some of the challenges and concerns that got brought up through that. We created a third-party reporting system and hold a lot of trainings both for staff, our board of directors. We've done anti-harassment training, bystander intervention training for our board of directors specifically, and then also offering those things through our student chapters and at our meetings. And so the next one, I can go on to the next one slide. The last Rapid Action Committee was really focused on examining Black scientists and engineers and their current engagement within Optica and the larger optics community. And that rack resulted in a whole bunch of focus on students in early careers. It created a publishing grant for first-time authors. One thing that was identified was students in early career in particular having barriers to paywall barriers that really inhibited engagement. So we've got this publishing grant. So if you're a first-time Black authors and you're trying to publish in an Optica open access journal, you get a grant and the fee is waived. Another program was the Amplify Scholarship, which I'm going to talk a little bit about later as well. But this, we just recently announced the first class, which was supposed to be 10, but ended up being 15 because they couldn't decide between the really excellent applications we had, so we increased the number, and they're going to get a lot. It's very similar to the Women's Scholarship where I just mentioned. There's funding, professional development resources, access to membership and mentoring, and they're also going to attend one of the other programs that's created, which is an immersion program. At our annual meeting this year, we're going to be bringing in 50 undergraduate and graduate level students who are interested in physics or chemistry, and try to get them engaged and interested in optics in particular. So the 15 scholarships will be joining the rest of those other folks that can apply to come to this program. We've got some other programs that are coming, But another area that this committee really focused in on is how do we expand on existing programming that exists within Optica already. So providing more funding to our student chapters to do partnership events and activities and outreach programs, expanding the benefits, for example, to our traveling lecturer program beyond just our student chapters, but to schools like HBCUs and other MSIs. So we provide more access and opportunities. And that was something that a lot of the student members and early career members of the RAC were really concerned about and wanted to make sure that existing folks within Optica had resources to do more themselves as well. If you want to go next slide, and I think this is my last. The last is kind of, I think, very an important thing that we've done at Optica is trying to find ways to empower these new leaders and these young leaders in our community, and providing them the opportunities to use their visibility and voice as they see fit. I had mentioned the Amplify Scholarship did come out of the RAC a little, but it was actually brought to the RAC by the ambassador program. So the early career ambassadors suggested this program to the RAC. They are the ones that came to the foundation and came to the RAC and said, we really want to do this. We want to build a scholarship. And so we supported that effort. We helped them with fundraising, but they did a lot of that. They were on the fundraising committee. They were on the selection committee. They identified sort of how they wanted this grant built. And so our role was really just supporting that and trying to figure out how to help them make that a reality. And it is. The other things that they've done is we provide all of our student chapters can apply for funding for special programs, and there's a whole specific area that's just about diversity and inclusion grants, and the student chapters can come up with the programs that they want, whatever they're like. They identify their goals, their who they're reaching out to, what they're trying to do. They've done a lot of programs around LGBTQ STEM Day and Women and Girls in STEM Day. And it's just literally providing some resources and guidance for them to create these kinds of activities. Two other quick examples are, after George Floyd and during Shutdown STEM, our ambassadors came together again and said, we feel like we want to make a statement from us as the future leaders of this society. And so we provided a platform. They created a press release, a website. They ran a full page ad in our member magazine with their statement about Shutdown STEM and why this was an important area. And that's also where that the idea came for the scholarship. Most recently, our students and our student chapters in particular have been really involved with what's going on in Ukraine. I think we have 11 student chapters in Ukraine, and we've been right before all of this happened, we were able to get some funding into those student chapters, and now we're providing funding for student chapters in neighboring countries. And our ambassadors have been very engaged with helping build connections and provide opportunities where we can figure out how we as a society can help and how these student chapters in these countries can all help. So I think I'm done with my time. I'm sorry if I'm a little over, but I hope you can ask me any questions you have, and I encourage you to look at our website for any more information.
Thank you so much, Marcia. Now I am happy to introduce Cheryl Enderline, who is the Director of Leadership with the American Geophysical Union.
Thanks, Amy. So I work for Earth and Space Scientists at AGU, and today I'm joined by Christy Till. She just popped up on camera here, who is an early career scientist, and I'm going to introduce her more in a bit. But let me start by telling you what AGU is. AGU is an international nonprofit association supporting an inclusive community of Earth and space scientists and partners who are dedicated to discovery and solutions to societal challenges. Next slide, please. So I'm just got a few quick slides to give you a little snapshot of AGU, and what I want to point out on this slide is that in the middle row on the right, we have about 20,000 volunteers of our 60,000 members. I'm really focused on the top 500 volunteers, of which 75 are council members and 16 are members of the board. Next slide, please. You can see on this slide that we're a global organization and how our membership breaks out both by type and across the globe. And you're going to have these slides later, and so you can look at this more and ask me questions if you'd like. Next slide. So I want to start here because in order to tell you about student and early career leaders at AGU, we have to go back to 2008, 2009, 2010. So I arrived at AGU in 2010, and before I arrived, AGU was a successful organization, and they referred to themselves as a sleeping giant. A group of volunteer leaders were leading a charge to re-envision the future, and they asked themselves, what could AGU be? And today, just over a decade later, we are actually living in the future that they envisioned. And our story today about student and early career leaders played a really strong role in that. Next slide, please. When I arrived in 2010, I arrived in the middle of a governance revolution. I arrived to be a witness to history. I was actually in the room where it happened. And as I was spending time with one of the leaders of the revolution in the past few weeks, she said something that really relates to this conversation today. She said that one of her greatest achievements at AGU was giving student and early career scientists leadership positions at AGU. And as you're going to see, the impact of that is profound. So what did we do? Next slide, please. So first, our 2010 strategic plan emphasized student and early career leaders. There's 3 parts to that plan: an envisioned future, core values, and strategic goals. I'm going to start with the envisioned future. When they envisioned the future, one of the things they said would earmark the future would be that AGU is a model of excellence, diversity, integrity, and equality that attracts and retains the best scientists and students. Their core values, there's a list of them, and I pulled out 2 that were most related to this topic today. One is equity and inclusiveness, and the other is an active role in educating and nurturing the next generation of scientists. And they didn't just come up with a list of core values. They said, when we embody our core values, this is what it will look like. And one of those desired outcomes is that individual scientists worldwide are equals in all AGU activities. Okay, so the important word in that statement is equals. So a question came up earlier this week about, well, how does AGU handle student and early career leaders? It was a meeting of global scientific organizations, and they wanted to know, how did AGU handle student and early career? You know, were they just observers? Were they shadowing? No, they're equals in all AGU activities and decisions. And then we had 4 strategic goals in this plan. One of them was labeled talent pool, and in the objectives underneath that goal, one specific objective that I pulled out was to enhance engagement and involvement of AGU in AGU of students and early career scientists. So this is really important because our plan demanded that we figure out how to engage and empower student and early career scientists. Next slide, please. So let me define our career stages. Most of these are self-evident, but early career AGU is defined as less than 10 years past your terminal degree. And I've thrown the definition of mid-career in here as well, because empowering student and early career leaders has led to a big impact in how mid-career scientists are also involved in our organization. So that's defined as less than 20 years past terminal degree. Next slide, please. So when I arrived at AGU, Tim Grove, who was the president at the time and one of the leaders of the revolution, and also Christie's PhD advisor, said to me, "This is your charge, Cheryl, always have the future at the table." So why would you, back please, why would you do this? And here's what I can say to you after 11 years is that it's not just giving them opportunities, it actually changes the conversation, which changes the future. Next slide, please. Okay, so I know you can't read this, but in 2015, I took a little snapshot of how far we had come in giving student and early career scientists leadership opportunities at AGU. And this document I posted on a Google Drive, and I'm going to give you the link later in this presentation, but let me summarize what it says. Next slide. So we have to start in 2010 because we had a new strategic plan and the governance model, a new governance model to support it. And as we started to implement that, we explicitly built in leadership opportunities for student and early career leaders. So here's a snapshot of the highest level, the board and the council, but it goes beyond that as well. It's also happening in our union level committees, and also I couldn't in 2010 control anything below the union level committees, but I talked to the staff who handles this earlier this week, and they said to me, currently now, all of our science sections also have student and early career and leadership positions, and they've formed a group that works across all of those. And so it's really taken on a life of its own that, like I said, in 2010, we could only dream of. It was a twinkle in our eye. So let's start with 2010. So in 2010, we had a recomposed council, an expanded council, and we had 5 at-large appointed positions, which we used for student and early career leaders. All 5 positions were given to student and early career leaders. That experiment worked so well that by the time of our first election in 2012, we had created 6 permanent positions on our council. And Christy was probably in the room when the council approved that recommendation. And I have to say, we all looked at each other and said, wow, that was so easy, we should have asked for more. So we have 6, we could have more, and it would really be great if we did. As a result of that election, one of our early career members, the one who's actually joining us today, got elected by the council to be vice chair of the council, which then gave her a board position. That experiment worked so well that by the next election in 2014, we decided that one of our 6 director positions would be given to an early career scientist. And that continues to today. And then the beyond is, you know, we just, I guess one of the most important things I could say about that is we don't form a volunteer group at AGU that does not have at least one student and early career scientist, and preferably more on it. That is just the gatekeeper. I'm the gatekeeper of that. When somebody comes to me and says, we need a volunteer group and here's what it is, and I say, well, where's the student and early career member? It is required. Next slide, please. The impacts of this have been profound. The ripples go way beyond what you could actually see. Christy just told me something today about how her leadership has impacted a decision and her values, and that's a ripple that is hidden from us, right? So I've listed some things that seem kind of obvious. AGU has been impacted, individuals have been impacted, not just professionally, but also personally. Other AGU volunteers, we've had early career members stand up in council members, 75 people, most of them much more experienced. And maybe even globally renowned. And we've had student early career members get up and say, I don't understand why we're talking about this. The train left the station a long time ago, so we need to get on it, right? So other volunteers have been impacted, other societies have been impacted, and then that means that the future of science and the world has been impacted. So I could talk more about this. I got lots of stories to share, but instead I brought Christy with me. And if you go to the next slide, I'm going to tell you a little bit about Christy. So first of all, she's a trailblazer extraordinaire, not just for the interactions that she's had with me, but even the things that I'm hearing that are happening in her career. And I have pretty good tabs on this because I'm friends with a lot of volunteer leaders who, you know, are still on Facebook or whatever with her. So Christy, you can see here, she's a geologist. She is an associate professor at Arizona State University. Her PhD advisor was one of the leaders of the revolution at AGU leading into 2010, our approval of our new strategic plan and our new governance model. Therefore, she was one of the first student members appointed to our council. That she was the person who was elected the vice chair of the council. And trust me when I say, I think we all had like a jaw-dropping moment that council members would elect a student and early career member to be their vice chair. So then she served on the AGU board, and since then she's held many other volunteer leadership positions at AGU and beyond, but we're focusing today on AGU, including that in the last year she's been working with me and about 15 others on reviewing our current governance structure, process, and culture as we move to support a new strategic plan. So I am going to let Christy talk now.
Thank you, Cheryl. Can we have the next slide, please? I think, you know, Cheryl paints a really compelling portrait of all the values of including students and early career scientists at every step in the process. But there was a lot of background work that went into getting there. And so there's two additional parts of this dialogue that I'm going to address, which is how do we recruit students and early career members? And how do we communicate these benefits that we're talking about to the existing leadership and the broader membership of a society or organization in order to really help, you know, compel these kinds of visions into being? So next slide, please. So when Cheryl asked me to reflect on my experience for this today, I was trying to think about how I would summarize it. And I think you know, when I think back about my own experiences and things that led me to the successes I've had today, I attribute being part of AGU leadership as the most significant activity that contributed to my success. Outside my formal education. So it has played a profound role in creating, you know, the person that I am today, and how I look at the world and the science that I do. So it's pretty significant. So next slide, please. Some of the things that I learned and developed skills around, which both serve now to discuss this recruitment of other student and early career members, as well as things to talk to when I was asked, for example, in job interviews, why I was spending so much time in AGU leadership, what was the value of it? And I have a tremendous list of things that I can share, but these are just some of the highlights. I learned and developed skills around effective leadership. Obviously, there was a lot of important things happening in the organization, and I had so many mentors of really incredible people around me to learn from and watch how effective leadership happened and then be part of it myself. I developed much better communication practices. I was around people who were very effective communicators. I had opportunities to participate in smaller group activities where they constantly were thrusting me to be the person who reported back. And so through those experiences, having to stand up in front of 75 of my senior colleagues and speak effectively about what we just talked about, I had time and time and time again practice. And that was something that I really valued. I understood why they were thrusting me to do it, you know, more and more as time went on. I learned about the variety of job opportunities available in my field. I was a PhD student when I got engaged in this. I'm starting to think about the next steps. And I had a million examples of the members, you know, this huge organization of 80,000 members who were participating in various capacities to learn about that. There was a lot of strategic planning, as Cheryl was discussing, and I got to be part of that process, working with outside consultants as well as the organization leaders, and be part of that. And that strategic planning skills has really factored into how I approach my own work, or I've been asked to lead committees and groups since then because of my skills in strategic planning. The dynamics and interworkings of a scientific community or society are often something that we don't have experience as scientists and outside of an academic department. You come up in your academic department, you perhaps do a postdoctoral fellowship in another department, and then you move into a department for your position. So having this opportunity to understand how my fields worked, right? What were the big things that mattered to a society, the large professional society in my field? What were the things that mattered to my community? What were the things, you know, where are the decisions made? Who are the people that are really, you know, compelling the future? And what are the things that are really important to the future of our fields? All of those things were things that I was learning from these experiences. And especially in particular, because of the time that I got heavily involved, I learned a lot about the basics of change management. And in addition to my strategic planning skills, that has become important. For example, I recently held an associate director position at my university around developing our belonging, accessibility, justice, equity, inclusion strategic plan. And that requires a lot of change management. And I drew heavily on our skills as I developed that strategic plan. So I had these amazing mentors and tremendous networking experiences. I got to know, you know, people across many parts of my field and outside of my field in the broader earth and space science community. And I have no doubt that that has helped me so many times along the way in understanding who, you know, who these people are and them knowing me back. I just was making a decision recently where someone I knew from the AGU board was someone I could reach out to and ask questions to about whether or not to make this big decision. So, and then I think lastly, an important thing to remember is because I was trained early on in my career, I became a committed member of this organization, this professional society. And I really care about its future from the very beginning of my career. So I'm a committed member. I'm, you know, someone who's going to show up and vote in elections. When I'm called upon to be part of a task force or something like that, I'm more likely to say yes. I care about all the decisions that the organization makes and can communicate that with my peers about the value of the organization. So there's so many reasons why you effectively empower the next generations of leaders in your communities by building skills for them and creating opportunities for them to really help, as well as the benefits to a particular organization. So I'll stop there.
Next slide. Thanks, Christy. And we're going to be able to take questions later. This is just one of our current information that I gathered from one of our current early career scientists. She's a member of both our council and was elected to our council leadership team. And you can see here some things that she said has been the impact of her having this leadership position. And I'm gonna, for the sake of time, move on, but this will be in our slides for you to read later. Next slide. So I want to go back to where we started before I end up. We just approved a new strategic plan at the beginning of the pandemic. And we are currently, as I said, assessing our governance model and what changes we might need in order to implement it. And we will, of course, look at how to engage and empower students even more because of the impact that it's had on our organization over the last 11 years. And really, I put this slide here to say, to drop a challenge onto all of you to say, how are you re-envisioning your future of your organization, and especially in regard to how you can give student and early career scientists real leadership opportunities and a voice. Next slide, please. So I've asked somebody to drop into the chat because I don't think I can do it for everybody. This link to this Google Drive, which has our slides and also that document that I showed you that you couldn't read. Next slide, please. All right. I guess they took out my question slide because we're going to take questions in a little bit. But I know that Christy raised a couple things that we didn't specifically address. One is how to recruit student and early career scientists into leadership positions. And what I'll say is we have no problem with it whatsoever. We have the opposite challenge, which is we have more people interested in a leadership opportunity like what Christy had than we can actually create positions to fill, because about half of our membership is a student and early career leader, and they're very eager for opportunities. And another thing she said is how to communicate the benefits of existing, of volunteering and having a leadership position to the people in your university or your agency or whatever. And I'll say that's something that we're still working on, largely independent on the person making that case to their bosses and then calling on the network that they have in order to help them make that case. So something that's still an opportunity for us moving forward. And I'll stop there and turn it over to you, Amy.
Thank you so much, Cheryl and Christy. It's always great to hear how AGU is effectively empowering the early career researchers. I am Amy Koulis with ASM, and I'm thrilled to be joined today by my colleague, Irene Houladay, and she is the Director of Education at ASM. Next slide, please. So ASM has really taken a holistic approach and has made efforts across the organization, programs, and departments in order to engage and collaborate with the next generation of scientists. We'll be talking today about some of the programs that ASM has initiated, ABERCOMS, the ASM Future Leaders Mentoring Fellowship. We also have an early career position on the board of directors, the Young Ambassador Program, and then a Junior Editors Pilot Program. Next slide, please.
Thank you, Amy, for the introduction, and hello to everyone. I'm new to this group, so I'm very excited to present to you and share some of my thoughts with you. And thank you to Marsha, Cheryl, and Christy. The information that you presented about your different organizations always motivates the rest of us to know that we can do more, and we are all on the right path of what we are doing. So I'm going to start by talking about some of the programs that it falls under my portfolio in the education department, and then Amy will talk about some of the other ASM programs that we have embarked on. The first program that I would like to highlight is the annual biomedical research conference for, now called the Minoritized Scientists. It used to be Annual Biomedical Research Conference for Minority Students. And just like some of you have pointed out some of the things that we are doing for the trainees and the early career professionals, ABRACAMS is about 21 years old now. We are funded by the NIH, and ASM manages this program. And it is to really prepare trainees for pursuing their scientific careers for success. especially those from the underrepresented groups. So Abricams really is just not focused on the microbiological sciences. It focuses on 12 disciplines within the STEM discipline. So for 20 years, we have been funded 4 times, and we have recently submitted another grant for a 5th round through NIH, which we got a great score for. So we are looking forward to doing more of this work. As we thought about focusing on trainees and thinking about how to transition trainees into leadership positions, as you all have been addressing, we are proposing to change the name to the Annual Biomedical Research Conference for Minoritized Scientists, because that elevates the level that the trainees come to us when they are working with us in this forum with the Abricams meeting. And so it spans from the undergraduate level all the way to the faculty level. And I am very pleased to say that this year in 2022, for the first time, we are doing an e-poster spring symposia, which is focusing on high school and freshmen. And these individuals usually did not have an opportunity to present at Abricams in-person meeting, only because, you know, we got so many abstracts submitted that we couldn't accommodate everyone. So we're trying to expand our forum of how many students that we can engage and we can train in the STEM field. One of the things that we are doing to elevate trainees, especially the graduate students, into leadership positions, is that for this e-poster symposia, we have decided to use our graduate students to serve as the judges for all of the students. So it gives them something, one, to put on their resumes and also, you know, to show that they are really taking on some leadership positions. So we're very excited to launch this this year. Next slide, please. Yeah, so I mentioned the scientific disciplines that Abricams covers. And as I said, Abricams covers 12 scientific disciplines, with microbiology being one of them. So between microbiology and immunology, we have about 16 or 17% of our audiences fall into the microbiology field. But again, we focus on all the STEM disciplines. Next slide, please. So I wanted to share with the group just some comparison data of how Abricams has grown over the years. So as you can tell from this chart, we have really been putting in a concerted effort to make sure that we expand our reach and we are targeting new trainees, faculty to join the Abricams family. So we've done quite well over the last, I'm just showing figures since 2017. Each year you can see a slight increase in the number of students and you know, audiences who attend Abricams. And now, actually, when I started working on Abricams about 20 years ago, we were so heavy on the African American community. And so we put in a real concerted effort to do more in the Hispanic space. And also, as you all know, one of the challenges is to do more and more in the Native American community. So we are striving to grow in that. We are not there yet, but we are working very hard to get there. Next slide. Okay. So again, with Abricams, there are different sessions and programs that we put in place for the target audiences to participate in. To close out, I would say that again for 2022, we are hoping to do an in-person meeting in November, but also to make sure that we are inclusive, we are also going to offer a digital component in the winter time. so that individuals who are not comfortable coming to the in-person meeting can also participate remotely. And we're going to give them equal access in everything that we do with the Abercrombs meeting. The next program that I want to talk about, and then I'll hand over to Amy, is a new program that we just launched this year called the ASM Future Leaders Mentoring Fellowship. Just to give you a little bit of a background, I've been with ASM for about 28 years now, and I used to manage all of our fellowship programs. So 2 out of our 4 fellowship programs focused on underrepresented groups. And the fellowship programs run from undergraduates, graduate programs, and then postdoc fellowships as well. One of the things that we learned over the years is that the fellowship programs is really focused on doing apprenticeship type program for the summertime. And so we just trusted the students to work closely with their mentors over the summer and hope that the conversation was going on throughout the year, and then really infuse them in the pipeline of ASM activities. We decided that it would be a great idea to have a structured program focused on mentoring, because anytime that we polled as trainees, the #1 thing that everybody wanted was mentoring. So this year we are having a structured mentoring program, and we are focusing more on graduate students and senior level undergraduate students and the post-bac community. I was very excited. Our deadline was last week, and it was very exciting to receive about almost 140 applications from mentees and about 190 applications from mentors. And what the plan is that in this program, we're going to have a structured program a structured mentoring program where we intentionally match the trainees with a mentor to work with them throughout the year. And we are hoping to have engagement activities throughout the year as well. One of the first activities we're going to have is to sponsor about 70 of the mentors to attend our ASM annual meeting. And at that meeting, we are going to host a symposium where we are going to do some of the training that Marsha talked about, and have some focused training on mentoring, on coaching, how to work with your individual mentors at your institutions, and how to get into some of these leadership positions. And then we are also going to match them up with the ASM Academy Fellows who are already leaders within ASM. So we are hoping to match them up with the Academy Fellows so that they can provide some one-on-one and small group mentoring for these groups. And then in the second year of the mentoring fellowship, we are hoping to sponsor those who would like to attend Abercrombs to come to Abercrombs and serve as judges. One of the things that I've noticed with all of our programs, and I think Marsha and Cheryl and Christy both all mentioned that, is that when we do some of these programs that touch the trainees and the early career professionals, they in turn want to give back to the association. So we're trying to really find a way to make sure that there are those opportunities available to them, because they are always very eager to give back based on what they experienced during their training with us. Next slide, please. Yeah, so I talked a little bit about the program benefits as far as the symposia and the structured mentoring in small groups and individual mentoring programs that we're planning to do. Next slide. And this graph kind of shows a little bit of data and statistics for those who applied for the to serve as mentors. So most of our mentors fall within the early career, mid-career, and late career. And again, some of what we've heard already is that some of these individuals who have signed up to be mentors were fellows about 20 years ago, and now they are trying to give back to serve as mentors. Next slide. And then for the mentees, this is a breakdown of the educational level of the mentees who applied to seek mentoring experiences throughout their trajectory in this program. So as you can tell, most of them are graduate level, doctoral students, and we have master's level, and then we have about 22% of them being a senior undergraduate. We were intentional not to go too far down into the undergraduate level in the first cohort, because we wanted to focus on the graduate students who have made a commitment to the microbial sciences first. And then we see how the program works, and then we might expand in the future years. So Amy, that's what I have with the education programs, and I'll hand over to you now.
Thanks so much, Irene. Next slide, please. So similar to what Cheryl had mentioned earlier, ASM also has an early career position on our board of directors, and this was established in 2016 as part of our strategic plan and governance restructuring. So ASM's board of directors has 11 directors, one of which is dedicated to this early career position, and another is dedicated to an international member of ASM. It is important to have these perspectives captured and represented on our board of directors. Both of these member positions have made meaningful contributions to discussions and policies. The early career members can serve 2 3-year terms, and they are elected through the general election process or call. Members who have started off as the early career members have continued to grow and flourish within the society as well. An example is our chair of the newly formed Inclusive Diversity with Equity, Access, and Accountability, or IDEA Committee. This individual joined as a board member in the early career member role, and then they had subsequently gotten elected as an at-large board member, where they were asked to serve as the chair of this new committee of the board. This has been extremely successful and well received in the organization, and this concept or philosophy has expanded across the organization so that other programs or committees also have the upcoming generation's perspectives represented and integrated into their activities. Next slide, please. And similar to what Marcia had described earlier, ASM also has a Young Ambassador program. And these are really dynamic early career leaders who represent ASM in their local scientific communities, facilitating networking, professional development, and collaboration in order to strengthen science globally. This prestigious volunteer position is open to students and early career scientists in the United States, as well as around the world, who are interested in working with ASM. The current enrollment must be, in order to enroll for the program, you must be a student or a PhD candidate or have earned your PhD within the past 5 years. These candidates have a desire to be leaders, and they work with other young ambassadors of science around the globe to promote and advance the microbial scientists and make great friends too. Next slide, please. So a strategy that is embodied within ASM is to ensure the empowerment of all people. And in order to do this, we provide clear pathways and invest in professional development and mentoring for our members to serve ASM and establish trainings for members, some of which have already been discussed and described by Irene. I wanted to also share with you the MBio Junior Editors Pilot Program, as this is a mechanism to broaden recruitment efforts to the candidate pool for our editors-in-chief of our journals. At the end of last year, ASM journals had put out a call for a pilot program to serve as junior editors. And so the junior editors will serve in a 2-year pilot program where they are listed on the masthead and they serve as editorial board members of one of our journals. And this will then give them the opportunity to join other boards of our other journals in order to continue to serve as ASM editors and perhaps one day to also serve as editors-in-chief of our journals. Next slide, please. So some of the programming of the pilot program is to have training, and we do this through on-demand ASM webinars, as well as having live webinars with editors and ASM staff and external partners as well. And the participants in the program receive hands-on experience where they are able to actively review the manuscripts to the journal, and they also get the engaging feedback from editors as well and have quarterly check-ins. Similar to the program that was mentioned by Irene, that they are the peer and mentor collaboration, again, utilizing the synergy with the Academy fellows and editors. And then they are also able to network and collaborate, and that the Academy fellows serve as mentors in this program as well. So in addition to the Junior Editors Pilot Program, we have a comprehensive list of early career researchers who have expressed interest in reviewing for our other journals as well. So this really allows the individuals to gain that valuable hands-on reviewing experience that is needed in order to continue to grow within their career as well. Next slide, please. So this shows the inaugural cohort, which was announced at the end of last year. We have had 64 members selected, and we had over 250 applicants for this inaugural program. And 64% of them are within the United States and 36% are international. And we have about 60% women and 40% men. And we also are showing here the race and ethnicity breakdown as well of our cohort. Next slide, please. So we also have a compendium of other efforts as well in our organization to broaden representation and perspectives. We have the Strengthening Career Pathways in Science for Underrepresented Groups. We had one of our subcommittees of ASM host a congressional briefing. We are also having the appointment and nomination pilot. So this pilot aims to recruit new and diverse members to ASM leadership. We want to enhance the accessibility to volunteer leadership positions and of ASM governance processes in order to increase the inclusionary practices in the ASM volunteer leadership processes, and that we also encourage self-nominations. Similar to what Marcia had described, we also have travel grants, career development grants, and those for awards for early career researchers as well. Another one of our journals has what are called STEMM sphere of influence commentaries. And these are really views of the microbiologists of the future. And this commentary series had launched in 2019, where early career individuals identify an article or a series of articles that have really impacted their career, and that they explain how the paper have helped them propel their careers and scientific viewpoints. So these commentaries are valuable to our community in several ways. So the first is that they provide a view of how ideas influence and excite people who are entering microbiology. And second, they offer a deep personal perspective on the impact of a publication that could be gleaned from a number of times that it has been cited, tweeted, or linked to. And third, they provide an essential reading list with unique annotation that conveys the article's contributions and sphere of influence. The hope is that the community, the microbial sciences community, will join in reading not only the commentaries, but the original articles as well that have really impacted and inspired the future of microbiology. We also have many web writing opportunities, and this is a great way for our members to get that kind of non-technical writing experience as well. And then for those who are looking to perhaps consider careers in non-academic paths as well, that we have the ASM Headquarters Fellowship Program. And within the ethics department, we actually had hosted an ethics fellow that eventually transitioned into becoming a full-time employee at ASM and is now a dynamic member of our department. So next slide, please. So with that, we are open now for questions. So thank you so much for the opportunity, and I really enjoyed the early panelists' discussions and thoughts as well. So Lisa?
Thank you. Thank you, all the panelists. Such wonderful, helpful information for your fellow members, and what speaks to exactly what our Hot Topics program is for. Cheryl, you got a little rushed at the end and started to talk about this idea of conveying the importance of the voices of students in early career, you know, in conveying the benefit and importance of that to leaders. And I think that's something that would really be important to our members listening. That's always a struggle in a lot of the work that we do here in the consortium. Is there, it sounds like there's some challenges. Is there some challenges that you can talk about, some successes that you can talk about in that realm?
Yeah, so I'm going to invite Christy to this conversation because she's such a perfect example of what happens, right? As a student, she was, you know, looped in because of her PhD advisor who was, you know, revolutionizing the world basically, and then continued to serve and fulfill her commitments as she started her new job, and then had the experience with her university where they really wanted to focus her attention within the university. And the thing is, and I'm going to let Christy talk about that just a little bit, and how then she kind of broke out to be able to volunteer again for AGU. And we knew that was always her plan, because like she said, one of the things is that she was entrained very early on in her career to understand the value of giving her time to AGU. I will say that this is a situation that we have beyond early career. Rarely ever happens at student, but we have it at mid-career, senior scientists. There are situations where individuals can't make a solid case to their bosses about why time spent volunteering is beneficial. And we have yet to really come up with a great value proposition that works holistically. So Christy, do you have anything to add to that?
Thanks, Cheryl. Yeah, I mean, I really had to call on a lot of those communication and like strategic planning and all those skills that I built as part of AGU leadership. So you know, I was on the job market while I was as the vice chair of our council and on the board of directors. And I was effectively balancing my time between doing research, publishing papers, participating in very actively in two large bodies, volunteer bodies at AGU, and being on the job market, which takes a lot of time and energy. And, you know, people would come to me with questions and concerns about it when I was on the job market. And, you know, what I did is I said, look at all these ways that I'm like better because of this experience. You know, this experience is building in me a whole suite of skills that then I can bring to the university and I can bring to the department. And I went on to do things like teach a science communication class and things like that, and have led strategic planning efforts in my department as a result of those. And so it was by sharing those skills and by talking about how I was really bringing something back to my home environment that I was really able to, you know, convince what ended up being my home institution, but other ones as well, about the value of this work. And, you know, when my term came to an end, I decided to take a pause because I wanted to focus on, you know, building my lab and my graduate student community. But I knew that when I had time and energy, that returning to participating in AGU was something that I valued, and that has turned out to be the case. And I've served in a variety of roles as my career progressed. So I think it's that sort of trying to be able to summarize in your specific situation what the new skills are and that you can bring back to your employer.
Several of you talked about annual meetings and an effort to kind of hold hands and create mentoring and networking, sort of bring students and early career professionals into this, you know, pretty intense and strange world of science annual meetings. And I'm wondering if those efforts at the same time caused you to rethink, re-energize efforts to have annual meetings be an important place for establishing, conveying, and following, you know, conduct norms of inclusivity and ethical behavior and what happens at meetings. And is that a part of that effort at all?
Yeah, so if I may chime in, so one of the things that we learn bringing trainees to our annual meeting, as you know, because the annual meeting is so huge, sometimes they feel lost. So for our group, one of the things that we did was to work with our meetings department and actually identify a hotel that we house all of our fellows in one hotel. And when we do that, it's also another way to enhance the networking opportunities for them, and also to have the peer-to-peer kind of mentoring that, you know, they have. So if it's undergraduates, there are graduate students there to be matched with. And so they navigate the meeting together. And that has helped in the last couple of years a lot. Yes.
So I'm going to hop in here. This is Cheryl from AGU. So we're kind of on a campaign and have been for a while and are moderately successful at this, that AGU is not a fall meeting, is not our annual meeting. And that actually the other 51 weeks of the year are just as important as the 1 week of our annual meeting. And while we have student and early career opportunities and receptions and such going on, a conference even going on, from the leadership and governance perspective, my emphasis is on the other 51 weeks of the year. And I'm really using and asking the other top 100 volunteers to be using the annual meeting as a talent scouting opportunities. You will see people who are exceptional, either the question that they ask in a general session or a presentation or a poster or whatever, and everyone should be talent scouting during that week, because the other 51 weeks of the year are where we really have opportunities from leadership and governance perspectives.
Thank you for that. Anyone else had a comment? So I wanted to, because we only have a few minutes left, I want to just invite Jamie to speak. She's not on camera because we were having some technical difficulties, but I think Jamie wanted to remind people of another resource we have that is related to some of the issues that have come up today in terms of creating scholarships and programs and fellowships for certain groups. So Jamie, you there?
Yes, I am. Hi, everybody. Jamie Lewis. Good to be with all of you. This is an incredibly terrific hot topics, and the consortium is actually looking to incorporate early career and students into leadership and governance roles. And we are going to make sure that that the recording from this hot topic is shared widely, and we may be calling on some of you for the annual meeting as well. So thank you all so much. I just wanted to raise, as Lisa mentioned, just elevate that there is a memo that we will actually post or link to this session as well on the federal non-discrimination laws that set design parameters. They do not mean you can or you can't do anything. It means it's sort of what are some of the design considerations that you have to pay attention to if you are a society that receives federal funding for education programs, which then triggers some of the requirements relating to gender, or if you are a society that receives any kind of federal funding, which then triggers some requirements relating to race. And basically, all of the kinds of things you were talking about, where you have outreach efforts, where you're making sure certain groups know about opportunities, those kinds of things are generally pretty easy to do and don't really raise don't raise a lot of questions. You can be very explicit about gender and race, diversity and equity kinds of issues as to the subject matter of any program that you are operating, as long as the participation in the program is not limited based on an individual's racial or gender status, and you can specifically and expressly talk about a program, a scholarship, any kind of benefit that you're providing that is intended for individuals who have real strong commitment, real strong record, real strong knowledge and understanding of issues of race and gender in society, in your profession, and a commitment to ameliorating the inequities. But if you are a federal funding recipient and you have specific requirements that a benefit or an opportunity is only available to a particular or some number of races, but not everyone, or if that is one of many considerations in choosing who gets to be selected, you do need to pay attention to what some of the design parameters are for how to do that and how to justify that under federal law. If you do not receive federal funding, you generally don't have to worry about this in terms of the leadership roles, selection or scholarships or those kinds of things. But we will make sure that everybody has a copy of the memo, which was a subject of a hot topic, and a brown bag for those of you who may not have seen it before.
Yeah, on that, I'm having a little trouble. I'm having trouble figuring out how to chat to everyone who's listening, but you can find, we will post the recording of this hot topic along with the slide deck under the practical implementation tools on the consortium webpage. You have to use your login information to get to that. And under that same, under the library, so under library practical implementation tools, you'll find the hot topic and the supporting information. And also under that, under policy, under legal and policy documents, you will find the link to the DEI document that Jamie just talked about. So just for everyone to know that. Is there any other questions? Oh, go ahead, Jamie.
Well, you go ahead. I think that's fine. Go ahead.
Is there any other questions that people have?
I was just gonna ask if we can also share, I'm happy to share my contact information if anyone has follow-up.
Thank you. I told you I'd say that, Marcia, and I forgot. So, one of the important things here is this is a way of networking with each other. So I know our panelists are graciously willing to talk to anyone about our specific program, some specific information. I know they've covered a ton of really interesting information, and it's a lot to absorb at one time. But please feel free to reach out to any of our panelists for some follow-up information. And again, I'm just not sure if you type in your, email, it's going to go out to the whole group. But if it doesn't, just please send me an email, lisa.battaglia@educationcouncil.com, and I will connect you with anyone you would like to be connected to. Turn it back to you, Amy. Turn it back to you, Jamie.
If there are questions, I just wanted to, I'll ask one real quickly in our last couple of minutes, which is that has it been important in terms of giving real voice and a sort of ability to come forward, to have more than one early career or student member on various governance and leadership councils and boards? I noticed that in some cases you intentionally had multiple seats. In other cases, it seemed that you might have one, but what has been the experience of the importance of that? That's something worth thinking about as well.
So for us, it kind of depends on the size of the group, right? If I have a five or six not people on a committee, I've got one that is a student or early career member, right? I've got diversity criteria for every group that's formed that centers around gender, geography, career stage, and employer type, so that we have good mix, because how you charge and compose a group determines the output of the group. And so if you want a diverse output, you've got to have a diverse group working on whatever the charge is. So, but as the group grows larger, then I want to have more, right? So if I have about half of my membership that's student and early career at any given time, I don't have any groups where I have half of the composition be student and early career, so they're already underrepresented.
Anyone else have a thought about that? I'll let Amy close us out on time.
Great, thank you so much. It has been really scintillating discussion today. I've really enjoyed hearing from my colleagues on how we are really engaging the next generation of STEM professionals, and look forward to continuing our collaborations and discussions, and look forward to the consortium's next hot topic, which will be on May 26th. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, Amy. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, panelists. You're wonderful.